All right, we have a quorum and I have 6 p.m., so I'm going to get started. As a preliminary matter, this is Judy Vetter, Chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members in person anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Adler.
Here.
Vikram Chabra.
Present.
Dennis O'Connell.
Present.
Aaron Howard. Okay, do not see Aaron. Hannah Kane. I can see Hannah. We can't hear you, Hannah, for some reason. I did see you mouth present, so I'm going to move on. Jordan Rubin did contact me and tell me that he will not be able to join us tonight. Carlos Garcia.
I'm here.
And Mark Murray.
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Mizikov. Sandra Martiz.
Present.
Good evening to you all. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, the order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Finance Committee is convening by Google Meet as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please be sure to press *6 to mute your device. The meeting will feature public comment. Please wait until I open the item for public comment and press *6 to unmute your device. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. At this point, I'm going to call to order the April 22nd, 2021 Finance Committee. Move into agenda item number 2, which was review and act on a reserve fund transfer for the police department. Mr. Mizikov?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the second reserve fund request that we have submitted for consideration to the Finance Committee this year. This is for the police department. There's 2 cost drivers associated with this change that were unexpected and unforeseen. The first is a software end-of-life issue where we took advantage of an early buy-in to a new software package since our former one was going end of life, and the former company was no longer going to support it. And then second, as I think the Finance Committee is aware, we've had a lot of turnover from roughly May of 2020 through early January. It's required us to attempt to backfill 6 vacant positions. So we have a lot of costs associated with that and some other training initiatives that has been undertaken this year. So happy to answer any of the questions. There is a supplemental document within your drive for this evening that details out the line item challenges that we're having.
Okay, Finance Committee, I'm going to use the raise the hand feature if there's any questions or comments on this transfer. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So at this point, then I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Judy, I move that we approve this reserve fund transfer request.
Second.
Thank you. Great. All right, it's been moved in second for the review for the police department transfer. I'm now going to do a roll call vote. So all in favor of this, Mark Adler?
Aye.
Vikram Chabra?
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell?
Aye.
Aaron Howard?
Aye.
Hannah Kane? Okay, Hannah's still having audio issues. Carlos Garcia?
Aye.
And Mark Murray?
Aye.
Judy Vetter? Aye. So the transfer is approved. At this point, then, I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing to review the town warrant.
Judy, I move that we open the public hearing to review the town warrant.
May I get a second, please?
Second.
Great. It's been moved in second. Okay, we're going to do a roll call. Mark Adler?
Aye.
Vikram Chabra?
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell?
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane. She said aye, although her audio is not working. I'm a lip reader. Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. Public hearing is now open. We'll move on to the first article, which we're going to review the petition articles first. We're going to begin with Article 34, which is related to the climate and ecological emergency resolution. Do we have a presenter here this evening? Okay, I see. So I'm gonna ask that we limit our presentations to somewhere between 5 to no longer than 10 minutes, please.
Right. Can I begin now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Diane Jones. I moved to Shrewsbury in 1989 with my husband, who was born and raised here. Both our kids grew up here in a lovely, very affordable 3-bedroom house from the early 50s. We have a cool yard where I like to garden. Since 1993, I have been a licensed acupuncturist certified by the Massachusetts Board of Medicine, and I have a practice 5 minutes away in Northborough. You might recognize me as that lady who stands out at the corner of 140 and Main Street every Friday for the past 20 months, holding signs for climate action. People honk an average of every 18 seconds. We keep track. Bringing forth this petition is the next logical step. A group of concerned Shrewsbury residents has coalesced, and we have submitted a petition requesting the town of Shrewsbury to declare a climate and ecological emergency. 20 other Massachusetts municipalities have already done this. More are pending. Worcester passed a similar declaration in 2018. It's time. Why would we do this? Because by publicly acknowledging that we are in a human-made climate emergency, by saying out loud the raw, basic fact that fossil fuel emissions are heating the earth much more quickly than climate scientists predicted, by acknowledging that unless we change direction now, we face climate catastrophe in our lifetimes. By doing that, we take the first step towards making appropriate decisions for our future here at a local level. Earlier this month, on April 12th, 2021, Scientific American published an article entitled, "We are living in a climate emergency and we're going to say so." Quote, "An emergency is a serious situation that requires immediate action. When someone calls 911 because they can't breathe, that's an emergency. When someone stumbles on the sidewalk because their chest is pounding and their lips are blue, that's an emergency. Both people require help right away. Multiply those people by millions of people who have similar symptoms, and it constitutes the biggest global health emergency in a century, the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, consider the following scenarios. A hurricane blasts Florida. A California dam bursts because floods have piled water high up behind it. A sudden record-setting cold snap cuts power to the entire state of Texas. And we all remember the wildfires on the West Coast. These are also emergencies that require immediate action. Multiplies these situations worldwide, and you have the biggest environmental emergency to beset the earth in millennia: climate change. Given the circumstances, Scientific American has agreed with major news outlets worldwide to start using the term climate emergency in its coverage of climate change. End quote. In an emergency, the right thing to do is to take appropriate action, which gives us hope. I'd just like to say, Massachusetts has already warmed more than 2 degrees Fahrenheit in the past century. People my age, I'm 63, can feel it really easily. Spring is so early. Halloween is usually warm now. The sea is rising. Cape Cod is threatened. East Boston floods regularly. When larger areas of Boston flood routinely, where will those people and businesses move? Worcester County is close and currently affordable. Will they move here? It bears thinking about. When we acknowledge the problem, we are empowered to explore the options moving forward. My dad was a doctor. His specialty was preventative medicine and rehabilitation. Strokes, heart attacks, burns, spinal cord injuries, amputations. I grew up listening to him when he got home from the hospital say things like, "Don't drive a motorcycle when you're drunk. Don't get drunk. Climb a telephone pole and try to cut the wire with a knife. If you do, make sure the handle is wooden. If you go to a party and everyone is drunk and you don't have a ride home, call me anytime. I don't care how late it is. No questions asked." And I did, and he didn't. And I was so grateful. It was all about predicting the predictable. And ultimately more than about about preventing the preventable. And ultimately more about prevention for individual health. It was all about public health. I don't believe the government should be doing everything for everybody. But what I've discovered over the years is that a big role of government is to make sure that people can be okay. They can lead their lives. Human beings don't predict the future very well. They need leadership for that. Good leaders plan their goals. They recognize and try to prevent disasters, and they do their best to mitigate damage that has already happened. It's both humane and it's fiscally responsible. We are asking the town of Shrewsbury to declare a climate emergency, to openly acknowledge we are in a human-made climate crisis, an official commitment. Whatever portion of the climate emergency we can prevent, we do prevent. And whatever climate damage we need to mitigate, we foresee it as best as possible, and we're on it. This is for our children, our grandchildren, and ourselves. Right now is our last best chance to prevent a climate catastrophe. The first step is just to acknowledge this is real. Acknowledging it does not cost anything at all. Rachel Missel, who's a member of our group, is here as well, and she'll help answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
Okay, great. So at this point, Finance Committee members, are there any questions? We'll use the raise the hand feature if you have a question. Okay, I'm not seeing anything from the committee at large. I will agree that I definitely think that we are in a climate. I'm in favor of the town speaking up and acknowledging this as an emergency and a resolution. And as you say, Mr. Mizikar, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a resolution and there's no financial obligation tied to this. Is that correct?
That's how I read the motion. That's correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you. I do see that Vikram Chhabra has raised his hand. Vikram?
Thank you, Judy. I'm sorry, I was pressing the wrong button. Yes, I would also like to voice my support for this resolution. We are all citizens of this planet, and the scientific data is sufficient enough to be it's significant enough to basically convince me that we are in a climate emergency. The melting glaciers, the rising water lines, the changes in temperatures, all that is very indicative, and we owe this to future generations. So thank you for Diane for doing this citizens petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Well, at this point, I will open it up. To any Board of Selectmen that may be on the call. Any questions or comments? Okay, at this point, I'm going to open up to the public at large for any questions or comments. I see a raised hand of Isabel O'Connor.
Hi, everybody. This is my first time using this software, so I hope that everybody can see and hear me okay. I've never been to a finance committee public hearing before, but I wanted to come today because I feel so strongly about this resolution. And I really, just wanted to come out and show my support. So I wanted to say that I love Shrewsbury. It's my hometown. I just recently moved back because I'm a senior at Wellesley College, and I'm living back in the home I was born in due to the pandemic. And I just wanted to say that I really believe so strongly that it's our moral obligation, specifically like as people living in Shrewsbury and as people living in the United States, right, where we have some of like the highest carbon emissions per capita, to really declare this emergency, because we have to stand up not only for our community, but for our global community as well. And I think that we're in a really unique position to tackle this issue before the worst of it really comes to fruition. So yeah, I just wanted to encourage that. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, thank Diane and Rachel especially. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Bella.
Right. Thank you, Isabella, for coming to your first Finance Committee and sharing your thoughts with us. Are there any other, I see Brian Moss has his hand up. Brian?
Oh, hi, it's good to see everybody. I haven't seen everybody in a long time, so it's good to see a bunch of smiling faces. Yeah, I just wanted to, I had brought some petitions to the town meeting in 2015, if people remember that. We were talking about climate change back then. I just wanted to give it just a quick overview of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over time. So when the Industrial Revolution started in 1750, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was 280 parts per million. Right about the time I was born, let's just say in the 70s, it was 325 parts per million. Now, normally it does not go up that fast, but it was kind of concerning to see that this was actually happening, and a lot of, large corporations like Exxon and BP and everybody knew about it at the time with their own science. But I didn't know about it until later. And actually, when I got involved around 2015, that's the reason I got involved, because it was crossing the 400 parts per million threshold. So if you go back and look at town meeting when I'm presenting, the climate issue and how much carbon dioxide, you'll see I was very concerned when we were hitting the 400 parts per million. And as predicted, I was saying that the rate of change is about 3 parts per million a year. And so now NASA has just released in April that it is now at 416 parts per million. This is the rate that this is going is just never been seen before. So I do want to put those figures into the record as showing it as a climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or comments from the public? Hannah, your audio still's not working. I'm sorry. Okay, so I don't see any further questions or comments. So I should have said at the top of this, the process that we're going to follow is that we are going to go down through the articles. Once we complete our discussion, we will then go back and review and further discussion, and then the Finance Committee will vote on those articles. So I thank you, Diane and Rachel, for presenting this evening, and thank you for bringing this petition to town meeting. I think it's important. So at this point, we are going to move on to the next article, which is Article 35, that deals with Board of Selectmen and School Committee term limits. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there is no petitioner here to make a presentation. Is that still correct?
Madam Chair, that was the information that we received from the lead petitioner, that no one would be available to speak this evening.
Okay. Brian, your hand's still up. Can I get you to put that down unless you have raised it? Great, thanks. All right. So at this point, I'm going to open the article up for questions or comments from the Finance Committee. Mr. Adler?
Thank you, Judy. We've had this article or similar articles on term limits in the past. I think even last time it was a different petitioner, and that petitioner didn't show up either. I love to have petition articles, and I even love to have repeat ones like this to bring up new ideas. But if they can't come or send us a message or something, I don't know how to respond to it. If the petitioner or lead petitioner were here, I would have questions for them. You know, what they were trying to deal with, what their motivations were. But in the past, I've been one of the people who've spoken against term limits, and I will gladly speak against it again tonight. I'm one of the Finance Committee members who's actually run for some of these offices, and I've lost quite miserably to people who've been serving for decades, and I never begrudged them a moment of their service. And that's great, because that's how this system is. And, you know, the democratic system is designed to oversee the system. And if we hobble our elected leaders by saying the one qualification, well, they have two qualifications. One, they have to be registered voters of the town. And the second is they can't have served all that long in office. They have to be inexperienced. It seems like we're purposefully coming up with a bad system. We do not, and never will have, as far as I know, have term limits for the employees of the town, like the town manager, the superintendent of schools, the head of DPW, all the teachers, and all of everybody else. I would like to know that our democratic leaders can have the experience that the people want them to have to oversee the paid employees and a very large budget in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll make a couple comments on it. I'm not completely opposed to term limits. I do think that definitely we've seen when incumbents have left and it's been open, that we've seen a lot more people throw their hat in the ring and getting, you know, fresh new ideas into the town. However, I'm not in favor of this petition because it doesn't have enough information about how to transition current boards. The last thing we want to do is pass this article and then, you know, basically throw a bunch of people off a board and then have a knowledge vacuum. So there would need to be some process for rolling it off, some process for, you know, how long would you be off the board before you could maybe run again? So there's a lot of, like, I think there's a lot of holes in this. I think it's an age-old debate whether, you know, the voting booth is term limits, but I do think that you get incumbent candidates with large war chests. It's very difficult for someone to unseat them. But basically, with that said, I don't support this article. I could maybe support an article in the future that has a lot more thought as to how it would be implemented, and, you know, when someone could run again if they chose to do so. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Please use raise the hand. I see Dennis O'Connell. Dennis, you're still muted.
Hi. I just want to say I tend to agree that this article petition does not have enough information of how we would get there and, you know, what it means. I mean, but I also am not necessarily opposed to term limits. Although I think at the local level, I don't see a need for them. I don't see the campaign finances being as high as they are that people running. I think we've seen the last couple of elections some very close runs against incumbents. So without more information and a better plan, I don't really think this should go anywhere.
Thank you, Dennis. Carlos Garcia?
Thank you. I also am actually against this petition article. I think that our democratic process, gives a lot of power to the voters. In this community, 1/3 of our elected officials are up for election every single year, which gives the voters of this community a lot of opportunity to change who serves in the elected positions every year. And I think that's awesome. And I don't think that we should be limiting the power of choice from the people. So I do not support this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Hannah, we'll give you a try here.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yay.
I called in my 15-year-old expert to help. So I just more wanted to check and see if this worked, but I also do not support this.
All right, thank you. I'm glad it's working. So the next hand I see is Vikram Chhabra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think I'm basically open to more discussion on this petition, but unfortunately, there's not. I agree with my other members of the Finance Committee that there's just not enough information, and the actual author of the petitioner. It would have been great if that person was here for more discussions. So I don't think I can support it today.
Okay, thank you. Hannah and Vikram, can I get you to put your hands down unless you really do want to speak again? All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for any Board of Selectmen that may be in attendance? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to the public at large. Any questions or comments? If you are interested in commenting, please use the raise the hand feature. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So at this point, I'm going to close the discussion on Article 35, and we'll move on to Article 36, which is opposing the addition of fluoride in the town water. Is there a presenter here this evening for that citizen's petition?
Yep, that's me, Brian.
Okay,
Moss.
all right. So again, Brian, if you can please keep it to somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes max. Thank you.
Sure, I will. Thank you. I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. Can you just confirm you can see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. All right, so thanks for letting me present. So the big issue that I want to present is the new information, because there's probably a lot of you asking, hey, this has already come up 2 times at least, and a third time didn't actually make it to the floor of town meeting, but you'd say, well, what's changed? Why am I bringing this forward again? A lot's changed, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So since 2016, when I last presented, there's been a lot of change, and basically it's fluoride's linked to reduced IQ in children. So here's the history. I'm not going to. I do have more text in here that I'm going to read just so you can have it afterwards. But the water fluoridation history in Shrewsbury, it really started in 1952, and then I've brought some things since 2015. But what's interesting is that even in 1952, when they were debating this, thanks to Dan Morgado for finding that, the minutes of that, they referenced fluoride as harmful. You know, there were people in town meeting, Mrs. Dudley was one of them, that had referenced it as harmful. And not only that, that just shows you that even since 2015, when I first got onto this topic and sent a letter to the Board of Health to suspend fluoridation, I had referenced the harmfulness, which is fluoride as a neurotoxin and a link to lowered IQ. And as you can see in all the highlighted text, for every petition or request that we've done to the town, I've highlighted the neurotoxin and link to lower IQ. So this isn't new. This has been 6 years. Most recently in 2019, I brought it back to the town, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health, to notify pregnant women about the latest study published in the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics on fluoride's link to reduced IQ in children. That request was denied. And so I just wanted to kind of show you that the theme is there, and I'm going to kind of show you why that's important. So why it's important is since 2016, that's when actually there was a petition to the EPA, and it's under the Toxic Substances Control Act, or TSCA. And what the law does is it authorized EPA to prohibit the particular use of a chemical that presents an unreasonable risk to the general public or susceptible subpopulations. And the particular use thing would be, of course, apply to fluoride, and not just getting rid of fluoride altogether. You're saying a particular use, which would be fluoridation. Now, when the EPA denied that petition, that was done in 2016, it actually allows process-wise to go to trial. So they were actually able to sue the EPA for denying their petition to exercise the EPA's authority to prohibit the purposeful addition of fluoridation on the grounds of all the new research that showed that fluoride was neurotoxic at the doses within the range now in fluoridated communities. So this case landed in federal court after EPA denied the petition. The EPA has tried to get it dismissed, but that was not dismissed, and so we actually they were actually able to go to trial. Now, why is that important? Well, there was actually a 2-week trial held via Zoom, but it's not only the trial, but it's also the depositions that occurred in this trial. So that's why a lot of things don't go to trial, because not that they don't think they're going to win, but they don't want things getting uncovered, right? They don't want depositions. They don't want discovery, because that's where you get all this information that's not out normally in the public's eye. So that's what this trial actually allowed us to do. So what was interesting about this 2-week trial is you'd think, fluoride, safe and effective, no problem. Well, what happened is that that wasn't the case. And actually, they found the court, which actually had full power to rule on this based on the TSCA law, that the court could have ruled either way and just said, nope, fluoride's good, or yep, fluoride's bad. But instead, what they did is they said, you know what, we're going to put an abeyance order. And there was reasons for this that I'm going to get into. And this trial is still going on. It's held in abeyance, and they have status updates. I just had one today. And really what they're doing is that there's been so much scientific evidence that's come forward since 2016 that they wanted the EPA to re-look at this science, because it came up during the trial. And just most notably right now, there's actually a National Toxicology Program review of fluoride exposure that's going on, being peer reviewed by the National Academy of Sciences, and they're waiting for that final product. The court is. So if you look at my petition, I have 2 whereas kind of clauses. It's whereas the CDC admits to certain things, and the EPA admits to certain things. So a lot of people rely and trust on what the CDC has to say, what the EPA has to say. So I wanted to bring that forward as the reasons, because when you see, I think you'll see why there's some concern here. So the first one, admission, was that I'll actually show you this, that these are excerpts from the depositions, but they actually were able to depose the director of oral health at the CDC. So he is representing the CDC as a whole in this court case. So the first thing we said is there's no benefit from prenatal exposure to fluoridated water, right? We hear it's safe and effective, and it has to be safe and effective for everybody if you put it in the water, right? Nobody said there's a harm to any population or subpopulation or vulnerable subpopulation. So I'm just going to read this. This is directly from the deposition. So question, so the CDC's conclusion in 2001 is that they had good evidence, high quality evidence, to show that fluoride supplements do not provide a benefit for children when given during pregnancy, correct? Answer, yeah, when given to pregnant women. So they've known since 2001 that there is no benefit to the child when given to pregnant women. And he also, during that deposition I have in the upper right, he also is quoted as saying, we have not found evidence that shows benefit to the child if community water fluoridation or some other form of fluoride is ingested by the mother. So that's prenatal. What about infants? So the question was asked.
Judy, point of order.
Question.
Mark,
Sorry,
what's your
I heard
point of order?
How much longer is this going to go on? Don't we have a time frame that we have
Yeah,
to?
10 minutes. I asked for a maximum of 10 minutes.
Thank you.
So what about infants? Question, is the CDC aware of any evidence demonstrating benefits from consumption of fluoridated drinking water during the first 6 months of life? Answer, we are not aware of any evidence. So when we say the CDC's science, they have none to prove that it's effective for either fetuses or infants. The other part of my petition is about they don't have the data on the upper tolerable upper level of fluoride, right? For children, they don't have the actual safe dose. So question, so CDC does not have any data on the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects on children. Answer, right. So they have zero data, zero studies, zero science on what the upper tolerable intake is. So that means they do not have any science to say what's safe. And then, then there's also emissions by the EPA. And I'm going to go through each one of those. So you might say, well, pregnant women are drinking fluoride, the placenta's there, they're protected. But they have these undisputed facts. One of them was by the EPA. Fluoride passes through the placenta and gets into the fetal brain. Now, those studies I was talking about, I'm going to do a little summary here. This is Judge Chen who's presiding over it. I want to read what he said. So much has changed since the petition was filed. 2 significant series of studies, respective cohort studies, which everyone agrees is the best methodology. Everybody agrees that these were rigorous studies, and everybody agrees that these studies would be part of the best available scientific evidence. When he says everybody, he's including the EPA. The EPA also appears to have applied a standard of causation, which is way over. You don't even have to do causation for lead, which from my read of TOSCA is not accurate. It's not a proper allocation. It's not the proper standard. It's unreasonable risk, not causation. He also said, because there is serious evidence here, there is no doubt that these 2 studies from Canada or Mexico raise serious questions. And this is just more data for you to look at. This is actually the court order in abeyance, and he actually has all of the EPA reference disclosure depositions and testimonies that actually say that the studies that I'm talking about, Bahash, Green, and Till, are the most rigorous. They are the best studies, highest quality studies, most reliable studies to date on the subject. So these aren't cherry-picked studies that we're talking about. If anybody says we're cherry-picking, this is the EPA itself saying these are the best studies. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, oops. So these are the 4 studies. And what happened was the first study came out in 2017. It was in urito fluoride exposure linked to lower IQ in kids. These are NIH funded, by the way. So a lot of the criticisms in the past were these are not US government funded studies, but they are. All 4 of these are government funded by the NIH. Which of these are the ones the EPA say are the best? So when the Green study came out, that's when I came back to the town and said, because it was said before, well, we don't have any peer-reviewed studies that repeat any harm. Well, here's the Green study repeated the study in 2017, showing low fluoride exposure can reduce IQ. And since then, we've had another one. So there's four studies. I'm a little trouble with my presentation. Please hold. And then this is the chief scientist on fluoride at EPA. So I was saying that if you think, well, no, EPA says there's a certain limit, we don't need to look at it. Here's the chief scientist question. And would you agree that this study further supports the need for reassessment of current safety standard of fluoride in the United States? Answer, yes, it's one of several. And she's talking about those 4 NIH-funded studies. Oops. So I'm almost done. What's very important is that I told you how the court's waiting for the NTP monograph to be finally finished being peer reviewed. Well, the actual director of the NTP, and she was also the director of National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, both under the NIH. She was the director for 10 years. She has since retired in 2019. And she wrote an op-ed, which was called, It's Time to Protect Kids Developing Brains from Fluoride. Mounting evidence suggests fluoride may be hampering brain development and reducing kids' IQ. The U.S. needs to rethink the exposure for pregnant women and children. Some of the authors of those studies are included here, Bruce Lanphier and Christine Till. Bruce Lanphier is actually somebody that the EPA relied on for the air lead standard. So he's respected as well and used by the EPA. And that's Linda Birnbaum. Now the conclusion in the draft form is
Excuse me, Brian, are you about ready to wrap up? Because
yeah.
I have you at your time.
Yeah, if I can get another minute, that would be helpful. I'm almost
If you could please wrap it up. We do have a long evening ahead of us.
Okay. So the conclusion that they made in the NTP, though, this is just draft. The conclusion is NTP concludes that fluoride is presumed to be a cognitive neurodevelopment hazard to humans. And then just a quote from the JAMA Pediatrics, which was the study from 2019. They actually had the JAMA Pediatrics editor-in-chief surprised, and you can read some of this later, saying, I've always heard from my traditional teaching here that fluoride is completely safe, and all the people trying to take it out of the water are nuts. It's the best thing that's ever happened for children's dental health, and we just need to push back and get it into every water system. So when I first saw the study, my inclination was, what the hell? So, this is where we got to take a look at this stuff. Even, you have the editor-in-chief of the premier pediatrics journal saying this. You've got the EPA and CDC information I gave you above. So I think it's time that we oppose and get the fluoride out of the water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mr. Adler, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Brian, for your presentation. I'm just looking at the language of your petition, and it doesn't have all the other stuff, all the statements by JAMA Pediatrics, the editor-in-chief. It's just these two statements from CDC and EPA, both of which are basically saying we don't have information that it's good. And I'll tell you that doesn't mean that it's bad. When you say the data is not cherry-picked, that doesn't mean it's not cherry-picked. It means you just say it's not cherry-picked. You cherry-picked your data. You cherry-picked a lot of your data. I'd love to spend some time cherry-picking some data too, but that's not what the Shrewsbury Town Meeting should be doing. The Board of Health is very qualified to do this, and I can tell you the Shrewsbury Town Meeting is not qualified to make decisions based on an incomplete federal civil lawsuit that's going on. Information that is admitted in trial during the discovery phase is insufficient for us to be making decisions. Now, you've been here so many times, and I'm glad that you come back when you've got more information. But every time you come back, and it's been a lot of times, as you admitted earlier in the evening, every time you do this, it gets harder and harder for us to listen to this data and accept it because it becomes crying wolf. And that doesn't mean that there's not a wolf. It's just harder and harder for us to follow it that way. And last fall, for Pete's sake, after Trump lost the election, he just kept claiming day in and day out, lawsuit after lawsuit. Even after every single court threw his case out of office, they came back and said, well, that one was biased. We're going to do it again and again. And they did it for 4 months, suing every single day, even though the case kept getting thrown out. And I kind of feel like we're doing that same thing now. I feel like we're talking to a brick wall, that every time the town meeting overwhelmingly votes no against this, you're going to come back the next year with some more cherry-picked data and go, aha, but this time I mean it. And maybe you do, but you've lost credibility, and it's getting frustrating for us. Thank you.
Can I ask the chair, can I just respond for 30 seconds?
30 seconds, please.
Yeah, one thing, I did bring it back to the Board of Selectmen and Water Commissioners, and they directed me to go to the Board of Health. So when I went to the Board of Health, an interesting thing was, I had said to them, I said, well, we have these studies coming up that show that there's a link to harm, lower IQ, if pregnant women drink fluoridated water. Can you provide me the studies to prove it's safe? Will you ask the Mass Department of Public Health and Worcester Department of Public Health to provide those studies? They're going to be sitting right there. It should be easy. And they voted to deny my request for transparency to actually get the safety studies. So now we have these 4 studies, but we have 0 either interest or zero studies, right, that prove it's safe. So I just want to say I have tried before coming to town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Dennis O'Connell has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the politics of this, but as a finance committee member, what do you expect the cost of the town to be if this were to go through?
So actually, we're going to
severe budget crisis, and I grew up with fluoride. Everyone else grew up with fluoride, so I just, what are you expecting this to be?
So that's a great question. Thank you for asking it, because right, we used to spend more money on fluoride. So this will actually save the town money. So if we spend probably around, I'll say under 10,000 now. In the past, we've spent somewhere around 20,000 probably a year on fluoride. So and even before, when we were using hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a strong acid, the water department did confirm that they had to use more. I forget if it was whatever it was to counteract the acid, so they had to spend more. So there was more money spent to counteract the lowering of pH of the water. But we are spending less because we are getting the fluoride from China now. We're getting sodium fluoride since we got the water treatment plant. We get the fluoride from the phosphate fertilizer industry in China. That we have a plant where I got that confirmed that the fluoride is coming from, and so it's a cheaper fluoride, but it would save us money. So if you enact this, we won't have to budget the 10,000, 20,000 for fluoride anymore.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Okay, seeing none, any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen that may be on? Please raise the hand. Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If anybody in the public would like to comment, please use the raise the hand feature. Seeing none, thank you, Brian. I appreciate you coming before the Finance Committee.
Great, thanks everybody.
At this point now, we're going to start taking the articles in numeric order. So we will return to Article 1, and it's the receiving of committee and task force reports. Mr. Mizikar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Throughout this evening, we've prepared slides for you that contains the draft motion, so everyone will be able to view them on the screen. They mirror what was provided with only a few exceptions in the draft document. This is, as we get to this point in time every year, we're updating and reviewing every day. But specifically for this article, it would be to receive a report from the Beal Early Childhood Building Committee.
Okay, any questions or comments, Mr. Adler?
Yeah, but Kevin, in the original warrant, it's the other committees as well. How's that jibe?
The other committees are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and traditionally this is only committees who report, who do not write in their own annual report and appointed by town committee or a standing committee. So the updates were provided for the DEI committee and the police station building committee through the Board of Selectmen and town managers annual reports.
I'm sorry. So is the motion not going to be read as it's in the draft warrant that we have?
It's going to be read with what's on the screen.
With what's you're providing us now. So is that going to get changed?
That's correct. It will get updated. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
You're welcome. No problem.
Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? I'm not seeing any. Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Not seeing any. Going to open it up to the public. Any questions, comments? If so, please raise the hand. Not seeing any. So I'm going to close comments on Article 1 and move on to Article 2. It's a transfer of funds. Mr. Mizikar?
Yep. So this is for the current budget, fiscal year 2021. We're requesting to move $4,332.12 within the stormwater enterprise from the 456 accounts to the 123 accounts, and this will cover overtime costs associated with street sweeping.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Not seeing any. Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Not seeing any. Any questions or comments from the public? Please use raise the hand. Not seeing any. Okay, so at this point, then we'll now move on to Articles 3, 4, and 5, which are all contingency articles.
Yep. So, Madam Chair, there are several articles this evening that are contingent upon the result of the vote on question 1 on the May 4th ballot, which is an override question seeking $9.5 million to cure the town's structural deficit that we face. With the passage of the article or of the ballot question, Article 3 would be considered. And the purpose of it is to establish the special purpose override stabilization fund in accordance with the relevant Massachusetts general law. And this, as you know, is kind of the centerpiece of how we'll manage the long-term finances in the town upon the passage of the override.
Thank you. Can you present on Articles 4 and 5, and then we can take discussion of that group together? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So Article 4 would be to fund the Special Purpose Override Stabilization Fund based upon the documents that we're holding kind of as our benchmark study, which is the March 16th, 2021 financial model that my office has presented. We would be moving $3,132,074 into that stabilization fund. And Article 5 has two proposed considerations at this point. The first, which we are calling Plan A, which anticipates the passage of the override question, would be to raise the sum of $137,188,286 for the purposes of establishing the operating budget for municipal, non-utility, and school departments expenses. And the alternative to this would be to raise a little over $131 million upon the passage, or if the override does not pass, for the operating budget. So the difference between the two is the difference that we need to continue to provide the existing services that we do today and not lay off a significant amount of staff on the town, the school side, and potentially other staff members on the town side as well.
Thank you.
So these, yep, thank you.
So articles, so at this point, we're going to open up discussion related to Articles 3, 4, and 5. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Questions or comments from the public? Please use the raise the hand feature. I'm not seeing any. So let's move on to Articles 6 and 7, which are both related to accepting money from the Municipal Light Department. So again, Mr. Mizikar, if you could review both 6 and 7, and then we'll open it for discussion.
Happy to do so. So Article 6 would accept $800,000 from the Cable TV Division of Municipal Light Department in lieu of taxes and to be used by the Board of Assessors at fixing and or lowering, which would be lowering the tax rate. Article 7 has the same purpose, and the amount of money is $237,569. These are traditional articles that benefit the taxpayers by lessening the burden of the tax rate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? And that's on Articles 6 and 7. If you do, please use raise the hand. I'm not seeing any. So now we'll move the conversation on to Article 8, which is a transfer from the Board of Assessors in offsetting the tax rate. Mr. Mizikar?
So same theory as the prior two articles. This is $500,000 that we would transfer from free cash in order to lower the tax rate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions from the public? If there is, please use the raise the hand feature. Seeing none, then we'll move on to Article 9, which is to pay medical expenses of retired disabled police officers and firefighters.
So this is a traditional article. The town has accepted the relevant general law for purposes of paying the medical expenses of disabled police and firefighters. The total this year in approved reimbursement claims would be $6,921, and we'd raise this through the tax rate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Questions or comments from the public? If there are any questions, please use the raise the hand. I'm not seeing any. We'll move on to Article 10, which is to establish the operating budget for solid waste.
It is just that. The total budget request for solid waste, as was presented at your budget hearings, is $2,405,995. These funds would come through a variety of sources, both department receipts, which is bag fees and other revenues of the utility, and $20,000 from the retained earnings account, and then $1,205,851 from the tax rate.
Thank you. Mr. Adler, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Kevin, can you explain what the retained earnings line means, please?
Sure. So retained earnings is the net balance at the end of the fiscal year for an enterprise fund. So it's the free cash equivalent of any utility. It's just called retained earnings by the state rather than free cash. And we have $122,088 in the solid waste retained earnings account.
If we have 122,000 in retained earnings, why do we have to retain most of that and only transfer 20,000 of that?
It's an option that we have. We could transfer more, but we are trying not to rely upon that one-time revenue source too much. So this would, this approach, just using 20,000 or about a sixth of it would give us the opportunity to utilize the same amount in future years. If we use it all this year, we would have kind of a yo-yo effect on the other revenue sources that would be required to fund this enterprise.
And that's because, if I understand it right, I'm just trying to get a sense of it. The revenue and the expenses don't always come at the same time in the same amounts. So the predictions have to be made and budgeting has to happen. And so you have to leave this margin of error. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yes. For the enterprise fund, we're anticipating that we raise at least $1,180,144 in bag revenues and other revenues. We can't be, if we don't raise at least that amount, then we'd be in a deficit situation where we'd have to come back to town meeting and appropriate more funds.
Okay, and my last question is, why in the operations do we not put any in the column 9, whatever, the group 9, when that's typically in other departments how it's done? Like the waste management, the other folks who handle it, they don't go under 9?
Yeah, I mean, we normally use the separate appropriations to clearly track specific expense categories of our utilities. In the sewer budget, I think, like you're referencing, in our 9 account, those are the funds that we use to pay the wastewater treatment plants, like the Upper Blackstone and Westboro treatment plant. So we really like to track those costs year over year, clearly. And the same in the water budget, we use the 9 account to track the actual operation of the water treatment plant proper. This is a very simple budget, with the vast majority of it being our hauler expense and our tipping fees. So it's really easy to track it this way. It's more of a tradition, though, I guess is the short answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? If there are, please use the raise the hand feature. I'm not seeing any. Let's move on to Article 11, which is establishing the operating budget for the sewer services.
Yep, Madam Chair, I have with me this evening, I'm grateful to have DPW Director Jeff Howland. I will intro this and he will provide more analysis or comments on the capital aspects of the remaining utilities. So this is the operating budget, which was presented to you at your Saturday budget hearings. The total is $6.7 million. And we are using the existing assets of the sewer surplus account, which is how we manage this. We raise money in the previous years and apply it. So we must have the funds on hand in order to operate this enterprise, unlike the other three.
Mr. Howland, do you want to present Article 12, and then we can discuss, we can open up for both 11 and 12?
Sure. So Article 12 would be our capital improvement project for the sewer department. The projects that we will be doing will be finishing up, or will be doing the construction on years 7, 8, and 9 of the II improvements. And also we'll be doing the year 11 investigation. The Rolfe and Maple pump stations, that will be for the design, which includes the force main from Rolfe toward Fairlawn, and we already replaced the line within Route 9, and then it's from Fairlawn up to Maple Ave pump station, and then from Maple Ave pump station up to Hapgood on off of Maple Ave. Sewer pump station evaluations is what that's an annual evaluations. We try to evaluate a couple of pump stations every year or so, just so we can have a better handle on our future long-term improvements. The radio telemetry, this should be the last time we'll come for a major, at least hopefully for a very long time. We'll be completing all of our stations and putting it on SCADA, which also includes putting a SCADA at the old wastewater treatment plant so that we actually have a meter of our discharge toward Westboro. Currently, we do not have a meter there. Private infiltration is a DEP requirement that we start conducting private inflow and infiltration investigations into our sewer system. Truck 60 is actually going to be a 50% cost between the water and sewer, and this is for our field inspector. Replacing trucks 61 and 72, which are 9 and 10-year-old vehicles. We're doing a better job in of replacing our older vehicles, and then these will be used further down, get moved to other places in the fleet. The truck 60 will be sold at auction, as it is well beyond its useful life. The Jordan Pound underground storage tank, we removed a gas tank that was put in when the station was built in the 1960s. We didn't realize that tank had remained, and we actually found a fuel leak from that station. We stopped using it sometime in the early 1970s, but we have to we're finishing up some investigations at that locations, and we'll be doing probably some soil removal there. And then we're trying to establish a capital improvement reserve. So if we do have a break somewhere, so that we have ability to get in there quickly to repair a sewer mains, similar to like we had several years ago on Saturn, where we fortunately had an account set up, and this is just to maintain a capital reserve account.
Thank you.
And that's it. Sewer.
Thank you. Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Judy. Jeff, it wasn't too long ago that at the stations, the water stations at least, you'd have to, and maybe even the sewer ones, someone on staff would have to go inspect them every day to see usage numbers and such. Is that what the SCADA is replacing?
No, we still are obligated to go to each station. The SCADA is to give us an alarm, so we'll know ahead of time. So if an alarm goes off that there's high water, low water, power outage, overheating of the pumps, etc., that the staff will know before they get to the station of what equipment to bring. And this just gives us, a heads up on if there's issues at each of the stations.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Right. As a reminder, we are reviewing Articles 11 and 12. Are there any other questions from the Finance Committee? One question I do have, when we're looking at replacement of vehicles, are we considering electric vehicles?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So the short answer is yes, to the extent that we can. I have a directive out to the town. I believe it goes out in the capital request every year that departments are to review hybrid and electric vehicle for efficacy and cost, and utilize those where possible. Unfortunately, some of these heavy duty vehicles, the solution just doesn't exist yet.
Okay, well, it's good news that that's actually being considered, so thank you for doing that. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Again, we're reviewing Articles 11 and 12. Not seeing anything. Any questions or comments from the public? If so, please raise the hand. Okay, I am not seeing any. So actually, we'll try to, maybe we can do Articles 13 and 14 together. It's the operating and the capital budget for water services.
And the operating budget is presented as it was to you at your Saturday hearing for $2,828,303. And we're using all water departmental receipts for the operation of this enterprise.
If you can,
Article 14.
yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Okay.
So Article 14 is the capital budget for the water department. The projects that we are looking at is continuation on our water main replacement. You'll notice that this year we're only doing 900,000 versus in the past 4 or 5 years we've gone from 1.5 to 1.9. That is because we need to start doing more improvements to our tanks. So we have 6 tanks, and we've had a study done this past summer, and shows that several of our tanks need to be cleaned and repainted. So this year we're going to include the Oak Street tank cleaning and painting. We can only do 1 a year, as we have to drain them, and we can't have 2 tanks out of service at the same time. The second, also on here, is the second half of the inspector's pickup. And then we have, we're going to replace our heavy duty trailer, which hauls the backhoe around. Yeah. We're going to purchase some waterline locating equipment and a hydraulic hammer to help the guys in the fields. We're going to try to do more of the work in-house. And then we're going to purchase a storage trailer or structure that will go behind the water garage. So right now, all of our pipe and hydrants are actually out in the elements, and we want to put them under cover to protect them.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude?
That's it.
Thank you.
That concludes the water budget.
Great. So this is Article 13 and 14. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Article 13 and 14. Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? Please raise the hand. Okay. Thank you guys very much. I'm not seeing any, so we're going to move on to Articles 15 and 16. Article 15, the operating budget for the stormwater services. Article 16, the capital improvement budget for stormwater services.
So the operating budget is $1,357,205, all from department receipts from the stormwater fee.
Madam Chair, Article 16, the capital is $275,000 for drainage projects. Currently, we have a list. We haven't determined which locations we're going to do at this point, but we do have a list that we are picking from, and then we want to replace the 2009 street sweeper. Since we originally anticipated to have the fall street sweeping done by a contractor, but since we did not receive any bids twice, we are now doing that in-house, and that street sweeper is getting to, or is actually beyond its useful life, and we've actually seeing more mechanical failures of it, which has it down more than it is operating. So those are the only two for the capital for stormwater.
Thank you. So we're going to review Article 15 and 16 for comment. Mr. Adler.
Thank you. Why are the salaries in this only under salaries 3, not under 1 and 2? How do we decide the differences among these 3 subsections of the DPW?
Sure. So salaries 1. So this is true for all departments, every aspect of the town municipal side. So salaries 1 are department heads and assistant department heads. Salaries 2 are administrative staff, and salaries 3 are technical and advanced supervisors. So that would be like division managers, engineers. In this case, there are 3 engineering positions in this that manage stormwater for us.
So Mr. Howland's salary is paid out of salaries 3, or is that out of?
So Mr. Howland's salary falls within the Department of Public Works Administration within the operating budget. And it is transferred in as an indirect cost. It is supported by these various enterprises, though.
Okay. Also, there's a trivial typo near the end of Article 16 under drainage projects. There's that extra 0.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Guess that's not really trivial if it's an extra 0 at the end. No.
I guess.
I was actually hoping for the 2.75 million, but I'm okay with that.
Mr. Howland, I was just curious about the street sweeper. You had said that we had originally hoped to have contractors do that, and obviously we didn't get any bids. And I know that there's been conversation about everybody wants to street sweep at the same time, so it gets difficult to get bids and to get it done in a timely manner. So I'm just curious about, so I do think it's good that we're buying that, but I'm just kind of curious as to what it typically would cost for contract services versus buying it and the payback period.
So our understanding when we originally talked to potential vendors 2 or 3 years ago, we were given an estimate of $500,000 every fall just to do the fall street sweeping. So we've, through work of the highway division manager and his staff, we've been able to actually do majority of the street sweeping during straight time, and then as Article 2 had, we did do some on overtime using in-house staff. So in this street sweeper this actually just replaces the existing street sweeper. We would be replacing it soon anyways.
So I think that this is worthwhile screaming from the rafters from what I've heard, because this is a huge cost savings by doing it in-house. So thank you for that effort. So I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments on either Article 15 or 16 from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? If there is, please use the raise the hand feature. I'm not seeing any further discussion on Article 15 and 16. Thank you. And we're going to move on to Article 17, which is the general capital budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was fighting my screen to get off mute. So the general capital improvement plan is for $1,941,360. We're using various sources of funding, including a little bit from the general fund taxation. We're transferring $230,650. It was unneeded after we bid out the Parker Road replacement, which is part of the current capital year plan. And the vast majority of the funding that comes in for this to fund these initiatives comes from free cash. So the details of the plan are laid out on the screen. They include funding for at least one project for every department that is requested, and we've prioritized them because we could not afford to fund the total request that was issued.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does, yes, sorry.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mark Adler.
Thank you. Angela, what's going on at Dean Park Playground? I saw you just joined us. I had to ask
Yes.
you.
Thank you. So last year we got funding for Dean Park Playground, and we've been using that money to do have a consultant help us with a survey for the playground. We're just trying to make it handicap accessible. It needs to be regraded. We're also going to change some of the components around so that they're more user-friendly. And we're going to have walkways that'll get you from, the majority of the equipment around the playground. So that's what that's going to be.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? This is Article 18. Any questions or comments from the public? If there are, please use the raise the hand feature. This is Article 17, excuse me. Not seeing any further comment, thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 18, which is another contingent article to transfer free cash to the General Stabilization Fund.
Yes, the request would be for $750,000 from free cash to the General Stabilization Fund. As the Finance Committee is aware, we have a financial policy that requires 5% to be held in 5% of the annual operating budget to be held in general stabilization. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, and working to get there. With the passage of the ballot question for the override, we would move $750,000 into the general stabilization fund. I'm not sure if we would move any funds or a much smaller amount to the general stabilization fund if the override ballot question were not approved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comment from the public? Please use the raise the hand. I'm not seeing any. Thank you. We're going to move on to Article 19, which sets spending limits for revolving accounts.
So this is an annual requirement. We have 2 revolving accounts established in Article 22 of our general bylaws. This sets the annual spending limit. The Council on Aging Transportation Fund is for $75,000, which is the traditional amount. The Donahue Rowing Center is higher than previous years, normally around $300,000, but we have some significant capital improvements that we have funds on hand that we want to be able to tackle in the upcoming year. So that's why it has been increased to allow for the improvement of that facility.
Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee on Article 19? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public on Article 19? Please use raise the hand. Not seeing any. We're going to move on to Article 20, which established the operating budget for cable television, public and education and government access services.
So in accordance with the state general laws, we operate SMC or fund SMC through this article each year. I do notice that we have a discrepancy in the text of the motion versus the total amount. The amount that's shown in the chart is the actual amount, $403,186, that we will consider through this article. And these funds are raised through the franchise fee that is associated on the Selco cable bills. So this funds SMC and the town's agreement with them.
Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments for the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public on Article 20? Please use raise the hand. Not seeing any. Thank you. We'll move on to Article 21, which is accepting of Chapter 90 money.
Thank you. This is the annual acceptance of roadway improvement funding. We've been notified by the Baker-Polito administration of funds of $989,633, if I'm remembering properly. But we accept these funds in annually, and it's what we use to make roadway surface repairs throughout the town. Our annual paving program is funded through this.
All right. We're going to open it up for Article 21 questions for the Finance Committee. Mr. Adler?
Thank you, Judy. Kevin, don't we need to accept a specific amount, or can our motion just be we accept whatever money comes in?
Yeah, traditionally, we just accept whatever funding comes in through this program. We do not identify an amount.
And are we certain that that's the amount, or is that something that, like, we got advice, but the number will be certified and later in the season?
No, so I have a letter for the initial amount of $989,636. Sometimes there's additional appropriations that occur throughout the year. If there's bad winters or excess funding that becomes available for one reason or another, and having this general provision like this allows us to use those funds if they do come in. It's happened actually 2 times, I believe, in the last 5 years. After the bad winter of 2015, and then one other occasion.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Article 21 from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen? The public? Please use raise the hand. Not seeing any. We'll move on to Article 22, which is transfer or sale of cemetery lots to the Cemetery Department.
So this is $18,000, a traditional amount that we use for the care and improvement of the cemetery. These are fees that come in for the sale of lots.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen, public. Please use the raise the hand. This is Article 22. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 23, payment of prior bills, which I assume we have 0.
We do not have any at this time.
Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen, the public. This is Article 23. Please use raise the hand. I'm not seeing any. Going to move on to Article 24, which is rescind the unused borrowing authorization for the library project.
Yep, it is just that. We have a balance that we were authorized by town meeting to borrow of $2,958,000. We did not issue that because the project came in under budget, and we also utilized funds that were raised through the library's capital campaign. So this is a savings for the taxpayers of $3 million on that project.
Well, that is, in fact, good news. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? From the Board of Selectmen? This is Article 24 from the public. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 25, which is also to rescind the unused borrowing authorization for the water treatment plant.
That amount is $1,910,969. Again, the project came in under budget and less than was authorized. By cleaning these up and taking them off the books, it lowers our existing, so to speak, credit that's available to the town. And therefore, we cannot draw upon it, and the bond rating companies look favorably upon that. So that's why we're doing both of these articles. But this is a nearly $2 million savings to the water ratepayers.
Okay, again, good news. We're going to open Article 25 for questions from the Finance Committee. Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Judy. A question about how these work. When we have authorization for all this borrowing and the borrowing doesn't get used, was there, first of all, how did it end up like that we effectively overshot that runway? Was it because interest rates changed with the new credit rating? Did something on the ground change that the costs shifted? How is it that our prediction back in the day didn't meet the reality?
So normally, whenever you seek town meeting's approval for a borrowing authorization, you're about 20 to 25% design. And we don't want to, we risk over asking and town meeting and the taxpayers thinking that's too much for a project, but we don't want to under ask. So we do our best job at the 25% design to have a conservative but very concise estimate. So as a proportion, the water treatment plant, this represents a little more than 10%, probably about 15% of the total cost. So it's a little bit higher than we'd normally anticipate, but the library project was much more significant. So it's about a 5 to 8% savings, if I recall the total ask from the beginning. So, overall, it's good news. The taxpayers authorized us to use a certain amount of money. We utilized less. So we didn't borrow it. We borrowed the right amount of money, and this is just kind of a paperwork cleanup.
All right, Dennis O'Connell.
Sorry, I hit it by accident. No question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't understand you. Thank you. This is Article 25. Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? If so, please raise the hand. Not seeing any, so we're going to move on to Article 26, which is tax exemption for the blind.
Oh, sorry, I went too far. So Article 26 is tax exemption for the blind, and this would allow for anyone who meets the criteria to receive up to $500, an additional $500 tax exemption annually from their property tax bill.
All right. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? I actually have a comment. I mean, this may sound kind of crass, but I'm really not in favor of this. I know it's not much of a tax exemption, but there's nothing here that indicates that just because you're blind, you can't afford to pay your taxes. I also think it's kind of a slippery slope because, I mean, all of a sudden we could have, I mean, there are a lot of things where you could start to say, well, this group and that group and this group should get a tax exemption. So I'm not in favor of this article. I think people should pay their taxes. Any other questions of Mr. Adler?
Yes. Does this Kevin, does this get subsidized effectively by the tax levy, or does this money end up coming from a state program?
I believe that we do get reimbursed from the Commonwealth for the acceptance of this whenever we can authorize it, but I need to double check on that. I know we do. There is a line on the cherry sheet, but I want to be 100%, but I believe we do.
I believe, like Judy, I brought up a similar concern a few years ago. Why are we pigeonholing this? And honestly, I barely recall. It was maybe 4 years ago. And the answer was because the state law allows for it and the state provides for it. And our obligation is just to say we're okay with the principle, not the financial principle, the theoretical principle of it. That doesn't mean I liked it or didn't like it, but it was just more information for me to take in.
I will follow up with the committee on that answer.
I guess, again, not to beat this too hard, but at the same time, there have been other things where the town has agreed to, and then they were going to get reimbursed, and then down the road, the state decides to not reimburse, and then we get stuck holding the bag for it. I mean, one example is the Quinn bill. I mean, so there have been some programs. So I'm still not in favor of Article 26. Any other questions or comment from the Finance Committee? Any questions, comments from the Board of Selectmen? This is Article 26. Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. DiPaolo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to the point about why we do blind exemption, why we pick that. Well, first of all, if somebody's is 100% blind, they have a hardship and they have costs that the average person but the tax exemptions that are are very, very limited. They're for blind people, most of them for veterans of varying injuries. There are some for seniors, and some highly are very, very difficult to administer. So we don't have a lot of these things that we could add into our list of exemptions because the state law doesn't allow them. They're very, very restricted.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public? I'm not seeing any, so that's Article 26. We'll move on to Article 27, which is amendment of the personnel bylaw.
Madam Chair, we have several amendments to the personnel bylaw, and this evening we are joined by the current chair, Teresa Flynn, and personnel board member Tony Froyo, who will provide an overview of the activities of the personnel board related to this article.
Thank you. We look forward to your presentation.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Our recommendation under Article 27 is to amend the personnel bylaw, specifically reintroducing a probationary period under the term introductory period by creating a definition in Section 1 and an explanation in Section 12. Also changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day, and adding Juneteenth to the holidays under Section 18. And lastly, adding step family members to the bereavement leave portion of Section 19. That will also include the right for the appointing authority to have the right to ask for documentation to determine the relationship between the employee and the deceased person. And that summarizes all of the proposed changes. They will be documented in a red line format that will be provided for review prior to town meeting. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Finance Committee on Article 27? Mr. O'Connell. Dennis, you're still muted.
Hi, sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real quick question. Are we adding a paid holiday or just a day off holiday when we add Juneteenth? And if we are, what's the cost to that?
So it would be a paid day off for town staff members. This would affect employees that are part of the personnel bylaw, so it's non-union employees at this time. And there's no additional cost, as you know, salaries are budgeted for all days of the year. So it's not there's no additional cost. It's 1 day less of work for sure, but there's no additional costs.
Okay, so yeah, so it's not costing town more. That's great. Thank you.
I had a question about the addition of the holiday as well. How does that compare to other towns? Because it seems like there's a lot of paid holidays, and particularly how does it compare to the private sector as well?
So I will start, and the personnel board members can obviously chime in. So we've surveyed municipalities across the Commonwealth, and there are several municipalities that are taking this on and making it a holiday. Several of them are changing the designation of Columbus Day as well. So this is a conversation that we had with the personnel board. And receive feedback through community members, including some on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force. And this is ultimately something that the Personnel Board felt was important to do. I think that we are a little bit on the leading edge of this, but I see no harm in that given the statement that it makes in the meaning of Juneteenth.
And to comment, Madam Chair, on the private sector, so I work in human resources. say amongst my clients, it's mixed. I would say about half have adopted it. The other half have not, but they also have generous PTO.
Teresa, your audio is cutting in and out. So did everyone else have the same issue with her audio? Okay. So could you maybe repeat what you just said?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
It's really faint.
I apologize. I'm in a
That's much
bad
better.
Wi-Fi area. Okay. So I was commenting that I work in human resources in the private sector, and we've seen about, I'd say, half of my clients adopted as a paid holiday. The other half who have not have generous PTO as well as floating holidays that they feel give employees the opportunity to take that day as a paid day.
Do we have additional PTO over and above these holidays?
So we certainly have paid time off. Employees receive that based upon their longevity with the town. We don't have any floating holidays though.
Okay. So although, I don't want to make any, there's no political intent behind this, but just, I think we need to be careful about adding holidays. I have no problems with reclassifying Columbus Day. But in general, I think that that's something that we need to consider, because although there's no additional budgeting cost, there is a cost. There's a loss of work opportunity. So that's just my comment. Dennis, is your hand up again?
No, I just never put it down. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mark Adler?
Thank you. Does this mean that town hall or other town services will not be available on Juneteenth, Kevin?
Town hall would be closed. The library would be closed. The Council on Aging would be closed.
Okay, so back to Dennis's question, there isn't a cost to us, but there's also a loss of service to us on those days, right?
That's correct. Yep, that's what I stated.
Okay. All of that said, and with Judy's concern absolutely in mind, I think it's worth it. I think this is fine. Like Judy said, I want to be mindful of runaway, overdoing it. And some of this is in the eye of the beholder, which ones. And I think Judy's right to be concerned. We don't want to just be doing this willy-nilly. I'm glad that, as Kevin said, that this was done with the task force's consideration, that the personnel board did this properly. And although I do think, yes, we're probably on the leading edge, as municipalities go, I don't think that we're out front leading a charge on a radical issue here. So I would support this, and I look forward to voting for this when we handle it that way. Thank you.
Best Kashevin?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out that Juneteenth is recognized as a state holiday, and so that consistency-wise, we offer all other state holidays as days off to our town employees. So this just follows along in that pattern as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? This is Article 27. Please raise the hand. Not seeing any, we're going to now move on to Article 28, which is Town Meeting Procedure Threat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this article seeks to amend Article 2 of the general bylaws, which is just that, relative to town meeting procedures. And the underlying purpose of this is to recognize the benefits that we have learned during the pandemic in having flexibility of the day that town meeting is scheduled for. So currently the bylaws state that it is held the third Monday of May. This would allow for town meeting to be called upon 90 days notice, or set at least 90 days in advance by the Board of Selectmen. Must fall after the annual town election and before the end of the month. So as we are using this year, this year it's proposed for Saturday, May 22nd. The only reason we can do that is because we are still under a state of emergency. I think the Finance Committee members remember the benefits of being able to deal with a warrant in a single day, and hopefully we're able to do that again this year on a Saturday meeting. It also removes from our bylaw the provision that a meeting, if called on a town meeting, if called on a Saturday, would not be able to begin before 2 p.m. So that would be a challenge for us unless it was a short special town meeting. So it could be called anytime after 8 a.m. We've been calling this one at 8:30 as we did last year. And then further, it provides some clarity by codifying within the general bylaws the ability to use a consent agenda and bundling upon notice and recommendation of the moderator at the meeting, which would be proposed to handle routine articles through one motion and potentially other bundled similar articles through a single motion after full rigor and debate is satisfied with the town meeting members.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Judy. I noticed that we're striking the notice provision, the notice opportunity at the post office in town center, which is fine. I know back when I chaired some group, we had to post our notices at either town hall or we would go to the police department because that was a 24/7 location. I'd never heard of the post office as ever being an opportunity to do that, although I'm fine with that. But my question on this front is there anywhere else in the provisions of either the Town Meeting Act or the Selectmen Town Manager Act that's going to be inconsistent as far as, say, posting at the town post office? And if so, does that need to be cleaned up?
Not in my review, not in town council's review. There are no conflicts. Thank you for pointing that out. I did not mean to skip that. Earlier this year, because of provisions in the Open Meeting Act that were granted to towns in 2012, I believe it was, we no longer have to physically post meeting agendas in any place if we've designated the website as our main posting place. So we are making that consistent with our other the ways that we post our other meeting notices.
Thank you. Carlos Garcia.
Thank you. My question actually had to do with the posting at the notices at the post office. I imagine not many people actually looked at that, but I would rather us keep that there so that there are more opportunities for the public to see that we have a meeting coming up. So I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to allow that to stay in the bylaw change, but those are just my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen. We're discussing Article 28. Any questions or comments from the public? Please use the raise the hand feature. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 29, which is to add Community Preservation Committee section to the bylaws.
So we have provided the Finance Committee with the full text of the proposed bylaws from the Board of Selectmen. This identifies how the committee is established and who is on it and how they are appointed, and sets out provisions for the general procedures for the appropriation of CPA funds.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen? The public, this is Article 29. Please use raise the hand feature. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 30, add Affordable Housing Trust section to the bylaws.
Madam Chair, this is a bylaw that is proposed by the Board of Selectmen. As you know, the town has been receiving funds from developers in lieu of building affordable units coming through the planning board, if so granted by the planning board. And with the adoption of the Community Preservation Act, more funds will be coming into the town that could potentially be utilized by such a trust in order to carry out and make affordable housing opportunities within the community. So this defines the membership of the trust and sets powers and authorities of the trust.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? This is Article 30. Mr. Samia.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We did a lot of work looking at other bylaws, and after talking with Town's Council and also looking at prior recommendations from the Town Planning Department, we feel that it does create a more efficient mechanism and a more nimble mechanism to move forward with affordable housing in the community. And it also will allow for specialization and expertise in this area. So we think it's a good mechanism also in light of the Community Preservation Act funds that are coming forward. So that is our thoughts behind it, in addition to what Mr. Mizikar provided.
Thank you, Mr. Samia. Any other questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any other questions or comments from the public? This is Article 30. Please use raise the hand. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 31, which is a zoning bylaw change.
Madam Chair, with us this evening is Ms. Laus and Mr. Cahill, who Mr. Cahill, I believe, will be making presentations on Articles 31, 32, and 33.
Will we take those three articles together or separate? Are they related? I didn't think they were related. Okay, so we're going to do those individually. So Article 31, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Not this time, they're not related. So Article 31 is relatively straightforward. In this case, it is the matter of the zoning bylaw catching up with state statute and state Supreme Court decisions regarding protections for single and two family homes. Oh, I see you have it up there, so I was going to share my screen, but that's all right. So right now, if you have an existing non-conforming house, say, for example, your front yard setback doesn't meet the setback requirements for that district, and you want to add, say it's a single story ranch and you want to add a second story onto that, that would be over the 50%, which is allowed by special permit in the zoning bylaw, and would also require a variance as it's currently written. What recent case law has shown us, and I've worked with Stephen Madow's town council on this, is that you would no longer require, I should say, zoning boards of appeals can no longer require that variance as well as the special permit. So they can't have both. So the town, under the ZBA and under the zoning bylaw, single and two family homes would be protected from that variance. So in other words, if you had that ranch house, you wanted to add a second story that would obviously, that's 100% increase, right, to your house, you would still have to go through the special permit process because your house is non-conforming, but you wouldn't also have to meet the standards and the threshold required for a variance, which is a little harder to show because it's usually, you'd have to provide a hardship reason. In this case, the board would measure or decide whether it is more detrimental to the neighborhood or not, would be the standard used for that. So that's number one. And we found, myself and town council, we worked together on this, that sometimes the simple solution is the easiest one, or the best one, I should say. In this case, just putting in the phrase other than a single or two family home to exempt them and to be in conformance with state statute and state law and case law was the best way forward. So I'll entertain any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Any questions or comments on Article 31 from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments on Article 31 from the Board of Selectmen? From the public, please use the raise the hand feature. I'm not seeing any. Let's move on to Article 32.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd just ask Mr. Cahill if he thinks it'd be better to share his slides, if it's more illustrative of what he wants to show.
It might be when we come up to the map. I can do it now though if you want me to take over. That's
okay.
Perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Not a problem. All right, let me just do mine. Okay. I think, is it, oh, here it goes. Bit of a delayed reaction. Can everyone see that? We're good?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
Yes.
So great. So the, oh, this is an older one. We now have the article number. I'll update that. So currently what you're seeing here is the subsection for the accessory uses section in the current zoning bylaw as it's written today. Accessory uses are things like sheds and swimming pools, right? So anything that's accessory to your main structure of your house. And believe it or not, in COVID times, we are seeing a heck of a lot of sheds and pools and those types of things come up. And this is something that the planning department deals with a lot of questions on this, and so do all of the members of the building department staff. As you can imagine, this is one of the most common things that comes our way. And as you can see here, it's quite wordy, and it's, as you read through it, it's quite difficult to understand even for the staff who've been dealing with this for years. And it's not always easy to explain to people who come to us. So this isn't a substantive change. This is a formatting change to make it much more accessible to people in town, for developers, but also for staff for our quick reference. So we can point out to someone, this is what you need to do, or this is what's required. So we've changed all those very long words into this wonderful table format. And I'd like to thank our assistant planner who put in quite a bit of time rearranging it for us into this table format and working with all the staff. As you can see here, it's just a lot more accessible. It's a lot easier to read. And we polled all the building department staff and they agreed. They love this format. And so we hope you do too. And then we also did is, and I've been trying to push for this myself as the town planner, is to include more diagrams where we can in the bylaws. I think you saw that in the town center district. You saw that a couple of years before. We threw a few other ones in. We just feel visuals are just much more helpful for some of the more complicated ones, especially when we get to things like corner lots. Corner lots are always an issue. So to have some diagrams there to explain them is what we're trying to do. So again, we're not changing anything of substance at the moment. We are just changing how it looks and how the information is presented to the public. So Madam Chair, I'll entertain any more questions on that one.
Thank you. It definitely makes it much more readable. And so maybe the question I had isn't appropriate given the fact it's just a formatting question. But when I did look at what you had there dealing with accessories, is it saying that if you build a shed, it has to be a minimum of 10 feet from the main building? In other words, a shed couldn't be built onto like a garage. Is that correct?
You could build it attached to the garage, in which case it becomes part of the primary structure. So setbacks would be drawn from that for the primary structure, if that makes sense. So if you put it on the side yard of your house and attach it to your house, when we measure, or I should say a land surveyor measures your side yard setback, they would then measure it from that attached shed and not from the previous wall of the house. So you can have it. It's that 10 foot. I don't know where the origin story of that is, but I'm glad you bring it up because there's actually been a couple things that people have brought up, and I just brought up, that's terrible English, not brought up. And I think what this is exactly showing the utility of this is that once we can see it and understand it, we realize things that maybe we need to question or ask about. Someone had mentioned flagpoles to me, but they didn't even know it was there until we put it in this format. And quite frankly, some of us didn't either. So that's one of, I think, the helpfulness of having it in this format. But that is a long way of answering your question, is you can attach something to your house. It just becomes part of the house, the main structure.
Well, thank you for that clarification. And I do agree that in the previous form, it wasn't hardly usable at all. Okay, Hannah Kane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of the relevance anymore, but my guess is that this initially came because the building code was started in relation to fire safety. So my guess is it goes back to, if a fire started in this building, it's not going to get to another building if there's a distance between. Although again, in today's times, I'm not sure that that's totally necessary. And I quite frankly, I don't know, and maybe Patty would know, but how many times this has actually been an issue for somebody looking to put some sort of shed or other structure on their property.
I can't speak for Patty precisely for all of her knowledge and years of experience, but I can tell you the biggest issue we have is not 10 feet from the main structure, but the setbacks from the side and rear lot lines are always, not always, but are the much more, the issues that pop up a lot more is that one, not distance from the house. That doesn't seem to be a problem for too many people. So.
Thank you. Any
Yep.
other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Judy. Bernie, these charts that you've been working on the several years now, it's wonderful. It's creating a user-friendly, better to understand system, not just these documents, but it's kind of exuding a friendliness and a simplicity that the builders and the homeowners and frankly your staff can understand better and work better with. My only concern is years ago I was an attorney and we loved obfuscating difficult language, lots of verbiage, very difficult to read. And charts like this would always seem to get in the way of litigation because it would prevent it. Is this format going to be legally binding? Is it already accepted elsewhere? Is this not just advisory, but is this does this have the legal staying power that we need? Because as you know, zoning and planning can become a very litigious problem.
As far as I know, it does. It has all the weight of the rest of the zoning bylaw. So other towns also do this for, in addition to this, they do table formats for signage for parking, in addition to accessory uses. So we definitely would not be the first to have something like this. So we do have precedent to go on in other towns, but as far as I've ever heard from town council or anyone else, that this would have the full weight of the zoning bylaws any other written section would.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hannah, I just want to double check. Is your hand up again, or did you just forget to take it down? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Any other questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? This is a zoning article 32. Please use the raise the hand feature. Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 33, which is amending the zoning map.
Okay, I zoomed in as much as I could on this one, and I think it's a high-res image, so hopefully you can all see it. So I think, as all of you are aware, last town meeting in August, the town meeting members voted to approve the town center district. This was a little bit of an oversight on our part. There were a lot of moving pieces back then, and we didn't quite include all the correct language to do what we had to do with what remained of some leftover pieces of the limited business district. So as you can see on this plan, the town center boundaries that were approved last year didn't quite match up perfectly, intentionally, that's how we wrote it, with what was the existing limited business district. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see a few slivers, I call them slivers, of orphaned zoning pieces that are still limited business. And in the upper right-hand corner, the yellow areas, you can see what were residents B2 district. And again, the town center district didn't match up. So we kind of get these pieces that are left over, but they're just kind of hanging out there and not really attached to anything else. So the proposal here is to simply, and it would have been last year too, is to convert these pieces into their neighboring residential zoning districts. So in the bottom left-hand corner, the southwest side, you can see along Maple, the proposal is to convert those to the resident B2 district, which is the neighboring district. And then on the upper right or the northeastern side would be to change those from two tiny pieces of the residence B2 to the B1, which is adjacent to it. So it is cleaning up this map that we, again, did not include that language last year. So we are trying to clean it up now. So any questions, madam?
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Any, Mr. Adler?
Have all the residents, businesses, and abutters been notified?
Yes, they have. Thank you for asking. I meant to mention that. They've all received individualized letters. I had 2 questions, calls, and they were just questions clarifying what we were doing. And but no one called in opposition.
Okay. I feel like every time we make these large changes, which are good large changes, it seems like every year we have to go back and fine tune some mistakes. None of them have been a problem. They've all been really like this, effectively trivial mistakes. But you know, it gets to be a little. It's difficult to deal with. So I don't really know what to say. I don't know how to say, hey, can we not have to have these? And I certainly don't want to ignore them when they happen. But how do these slip through each time like this?
Well, I don't know the last time. Maybe I wasn't around when that happened. But this one was just, I think there was just so many parts to creating this town center district. We had 4 articles just to get the town center district together throughout the rest of the zoning. And it was not picked up by any of us across town staff or departments. So it wasn't until afterwards that we realized we hadn't put in language what to do with the if you want to call it the leftovers of the previous districts. But I think in future, me personally, I mean, I'm just going to be a lot more aware of this. I don't see this type of change happening very often. It's kind of rare to introduce an entire new district. Usually it's expanding an existing one or what have you, changing what's allowed in another one. So I think it's points well taken. I've learned my lessons as well. So I think going forward, it's going to be something right at the top of the agenda if we have something like this again.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen, the public. This is Article 33. Please use raise the hand. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Cahill. We're now going to move on to Article 37, which is the Home Rule Petition.
I'll get there in 1 second. This is a request for approval by town meeting for special legislation that has come before town meeting in the past. We're in a new legislative session and the bill would need to be refiled for the Commonwealth to recognize within the town of Shrewsbury that mobile homes should be considered part of our affordable inventory.
Thank you. As you said, this has come before and we've done this. Are we just resubmitting the same thing? Are we tweaking it? What are we doing to try to be more successful? Because I would definitely, as we all would, like this to be successful.
We're not changing any of the language, but Rick Kane is probably the best to identify.
And she has conveniently, she has her hand up. Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the largest issue, Judy, is that of the 6,000 bills that are filed every session, only about 4 to 5% of them get all the way through the process. The Housing Committee notoriously does not report out any of these types of bills. We're not the only community that has submitted a home rule petition on this. And the reason that we keep doing it is because generally it takes many, many attempts and other communities joining in to get something recognized as being an issue in communities in the Commonwealth. This could be dealt with on a statewide level. It doesn't need to be community by community, and that just hasn't happened yet. So I would like to say that we'll be successful this time, but it's the same people are on the committee. But it is necessary for Senator Moore and I to be able to file it. We have to have a home rule petition passed within a certain frame of time in order for it to be considered viable.
So you're saying basically it's not that it's getting turned down, it's just not getting entertained.
No, there's 2 different sides to this issue. Some people believe that if you classify mobile homes as affordable, that it could drive down other forms of affordable housing. And many of us think on the other hand, that this should be recognized as a form of affordable housing and count towards the unit in a community. Not with the goal of necessarily increasing it, but we have this housing here in the town. It has been here, and by this law, it has to be here for over 20 years to be counted. So it's really not mobile. It is structurally part of the community.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? Any questions or comments from the public? This is Article 37. Please use raise the hand. Not seeing any, you're going to move on to Article 38, Selco to acquire a parcel of land.
Madam Chair, the town was approached by the Worcester Business Development Corporation. They identified this piece of land along Centec Boulevard that they no longer have a need for. And we, Selco, as we always do, we ask all departments if they have a need. Selco has several underground utilities underneath this parcel, and it is proximate to other major infrastructure for the electrical system. So they look to receive this by gift.
Which parcel is it?
It's number 93, the highlighted one right here.
Oh, I was looking at the big blocks. Okay. All right. Is that next? So that's down on the Grafton line. Does that abut their? No, because they're where they have their substation. That's up further. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is up further than that.
Okay, so it doesn't abut that. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee on Article 38? The Board of Selectmen. This is Article 38. The public, please use raise the hand. Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 39, which is the expansion.
I did the hand raise.
Oh, okay, there you go, Dennis. Hi.
This time was real.
I don't know why I missed it. I just didn't see it, so I apologize.
Just a real quick question: is that land going to affect the payment in lieu of taxes for Selco, or is it coming off any possible taxable land?
It's owned by a nonprofit already, the WBDC. So there's no tax paid upon it right now.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Again, one last chance from the public on Article 38. Please use raise the hand, or actually anyone at this point. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 39, which is an expansion of Route 20 intersection.
Yep. So, Madam Chair, this is a part of the ongoing improvements to Route 20 that's been identified in the master plan. I have to tip my hat to Rep. Kane for her leadership and stewardship of these improvements, but in carrying out the vision of the master plan and actually doing the work to make improvements along Route 20 and on Puritan to improve safety. We had to take some temporary and permanent easements, and in order to be able to do that, in case we always seek to receive these by gift, where a property owner would just sign over, especially the temporary ones where it just require us to pass and repass on the property to make the improvements within the right of way, but not actually acquire additional land for the right of way. However, just in case some landowners reserve that right and request a cash payment, we are making an appropriation in the amount of $50,000 to be able to provide them with due damages, as it's called. So happy to answer any questions, and others on the call will be able to walk through the details of these individual easements. Excuse me.
Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Mr. Adler.
Thank you, Judy. It's 50,000. I mean, it doesn't sound like much to cover potential problems that may arise here. How is that number determined, and do we have the ability to backstop that if there's an issue? Thank you.
The vast majority, Mr. Howland can maybe speak to the nature of the easements. The vast majority of these easements are temporary. They would be takings for 3 years or less during the duration of the project. And they're rather small in comparison because we're not really expanding much of the right of way. We do feel that 50,000 is a conservative number that we would return funds from in the future rather than the other not have enough.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen? This is Article 39. Any questions or comments from the public? Please use the raise the hand. Seeing none, thank you. And we'll move on to Article 40, which is Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services.
So this is
Funding.
a traditional article for $150,000 for Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services.
Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? From the public? This is Article 40. Please use the raise the hand. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to Article 41, which is transfer to the Lake Quinsigamond Commission Fund.
Again, another traditional article. This year, it's $5,000 less than the previous year, and this would fund water quality improvements of the management of the lake.
Sorry. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen?
Sorry, Judy, I had my hand up.
Okay, thank you. All right. It must be, I'm getting a delay here because I'm not seeing them until people speak. So, okay. Thank you, Hannah.
I just had a question for Mr. Miskar, and it is noted in the draft of the warrant, but I'm just wondering, does this include funds that would be used at Newton Pond?
It does, yes. Yes. So over the previous years, we've funded the Lake Quinsigamond Commission at $20,000. Last year, we went to 30 to help Newton Pond get their baseline engineering and preparatory work in, and now so roughly $5,000 earmark for that improvement of that deteriorating water body.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the Finance Committee on Article 41? Board of Selectmen? The public, please use the raise the hand. I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to the last article, Article 42, Trustees of the Wright and Harlow Charitable Fund.
As is required by the trust itself, the charitable fund itself, town meeting appoints annual trustees. These are the individuals that are proposed to be trustees.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Board of Selectmen? The public. On Article 42, please use the raise the hand. I'm not seeing any. All right, so that concludes that. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Judy, I move that we close the public hearing.
May I get a second?
Second.
Great. We'll take a vote to close the public hearing. So please vote in the affirmative. Mark Adler?
Affirmative.
Vikram Chhabra?
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell?
Aye.
Aaron Howard? Hannah Kane?
Aye.
Carlos Garcia?
Aye.
Mark Murray?
Aye.
Judy Vetter? Aye. The public hearing is now closed. We'll now move on to the deliberations and actions of the warrant. So I guess we will begin with, we'll follow down through the order in which we reviewed the articles. So let's talk about Article 34. Any further questions or comments on Article 34? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Can I get a motion to recommend, Article 34?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, great. So just, sorry, I gotta find my roster here. Okay. So we're going to go down through, take a roll call vote for all of those in favor of recommending Article 34. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
I'm going to abstain given the, it's addressing, it addresses me in my other role. So I'm just going to abstain to make sure I don't create an issue.
Okay, thank you. Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Article 34 passes by a vote of, would there be 7 and 1 abstain? Okay. Article 35, is there a discussion on Article 34? Again, that's the BOS and school committee term limits article.
Judy,
Mr.
I
Adler.
move that we recommend defeat of Article 35.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to recommend defeat. So all of those that don't want Article 34 should vote yes.
35, please.
Oh, 35, yes. Should vote yes. And if you're in favor of it, you should vote no. So go down through. So we're going to do roll call for all of those that are in favor of defeating Article or not recommending Article.
Recommending defeat.
Recommending defeat, okay, of Article 35. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So we recommend defeat of Article 35 by a vote of 8-0. Okay, that takes us to Article 36, opposing the addition of fluoride in the water.
Judy,
Mr. Adler.
I recommend, I move that we recommend defeat of Article 36.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, a move. It's been moved and seconded to recommend defeat of Article 36. So we're going to go down through and take a roll call vote for all of those that recommend defeat of Article 36. Mr. Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So we've recommended defeat of Article 36 by a vote of 8-0. Okay. All right. Article 1, receiving reports of, I guess, do we hold this or what do we do with Article 1? Because it's receiving reports.
Yeah, you would normally hold it and provide your recommendation on the floor.
Okay. All right. So,
Judy?
yes.
Why do we need to, we're just recommending that we hear reports. I don't understand what we're waiting for. Why we can't just make our recommendation on that? I'm sorry, that may not be a point of order, but I did want to discuss that.
That's fair enough. So we have a motion, so it's open for discussion. So do we hold it or are we just, is the motion to receive them or is it once?
We're just saying
We're
just moving to recommend that town meeting vote to receive it. We don't receive it, town meeting does. It's just a recommendation on our side.
Okay, well, then can we have a motion to do that then?
I move that we recommend passage of Article 1.
Second.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to pass, to recommend Article 1. Mark Adler,
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell,
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia, excuse me,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. Okay, Article 1. All right, good. So Article 2, the transfer of funds.
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Article 2.
Second.
Okay, Article 2 has been moved and seconded. Mark Adler,
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell,
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. We recommend Article 2. So we can take,
Point of order, Judy.
please.
Is it possible for us to group any of these together?
Yes, that was my intent. Yes. I mean, so I was just going to get to like Articles 3, 4, and 5. I guess we need to hold those. Is that correct?
So yeah, you could, it's probably best to hold them, or you could, do 3 and 4. Yeah, probably best to just hold them.
I think we should hold them. I
Yeah.
don't know if we have to formally decide that, but I just think we should hold until we know.
If I may, again,
Please.
like Article 1, I'm not sure what we would need to hold on. I mean, there's a plan B for each of them. We're just saying, look, town meeting, decide on plan A and plan B.
Sorry, may I speak, Ms. Vetter?
Yes, please do.
Sorry.
I just personally feel like I would like to take a vote when I have the knowledge of what the community has decided. I don't disagree that it's not necessarily going to change my vote, but I just think I'd rather vote on what it is that we're doing than on both scenarios. Because quite frankly, I don't really want to be recommending the one I don't want to have to recommend, but I would. So I'd rather wait.
I agree. So do we have to vote to hold, or we just through discussion hold?
I think you have to vote to hold.
All right. So can someone please make a motion to hold?
I would make
No,
a
I'm
motion.
sorry. Oh,
No, I don't think we do. Do we?
No.
Oh, I thought you said we did.
No.
Okay.
No, I said you do not need to make.
Oh,
a
I
motion to hold.
misunderstood you.
just
Okay.
wouldn't make a recommendation. Sorry.
You
All
have
right.
the power, Judy. Use it, man.
All right. Well, I just want to, I just want to make sure everybody's in agreement. That's all. Okay. So as far as grouping these together, then we've got Articles 6 and 7, and 8 and 9, which is, so 6 and 7 are accepting money from the municipal light department. 8 is to transfer from the Board of Assessments and offsetting the tax rate. 9 is to pay the medical expenses of retired disabled police officer, which we always do. And 10 was establishing the operating budget for solid waste. Can we group those together?
Judy, I think we can group together whatever we want, as long as it doesn't get confusing for everyone.
Let's then bear with me. Let's group Articles 6 through 10. Then I just listed what they are. So if I make it a motion to
Judy?
group Articles 6 through 10, please.
Judy, I move that we recommend passage of Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. We're going to take a vote for all of those in favor of grouping Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Mark Adler.
Yes, 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 and yes.
Please, one yes will suffice.
Yes.
Vikram Chhabra.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. All right. So then, just for clarity's sake, then, so Articles 11 and 12 cover the operating the capital budget for sewer services. Article 13 is the operating budget for water services. Article 14 is the capital budget for water services. Article 15 is the operating budget for storm water services. Article 16 is the capital budget for storm water services. So I would like to take Articles 11 through 16, please.
Judy?
Actually, I want to add in Article 17 because it's the general capital budget. So it would be 11 through 17. Mr. Adler.
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. So Articles 11 through 17, all in favor of recommending Articles 11 through 17. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Chhabra.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Articles 11 through 17 have been recommended for passage. Article 18 is also another contingent article, so I'm going to say we would hold on that. Article 19 is setting spending limits for the revolving accounts. Article 20, establishing operating budget for cable television, public education, and government access services. 21 is accept Chapter 90 money. 22, transfer sale of cemetery lots to the cemetery department. Article 23, payment of prior bills, which there aren't. Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's stop there.
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 19, 20, 21, and 22.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor of recommending Articles 19 through 22? Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charber.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Articles 19 through 22 have been recommended. So Article 23 is the payment of prior bills, but there's none. So
I have a question, actually, Judy.
yes.
Kevin, haven't we in the past put a token $1 in there? I don't remember it was actually ever zero when we would defeat it.
I can go back and look. I know last year. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we ever put $1 in there.
I only ask because I'm not sure, again, how binding it would be to have a motion for a zeroed amount. It would always have to have like some token amount, and then we would defeat it.
Okay, go back.
Just how I remember it, but
Sure.
okay.
I'll take a look.
We could certainly take it on its face, and if necessary, we can revisit it at a future meeting between now and town meeting.
Okay.
Judy, I move that we recommend defeat of Article 23.
Second.
Okay, great. So we are taking a vote to recommend defeat of Article 23. Okay, Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charber.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Article 23 is been recommended for defeat. So Article 24 is rescind the unused borrowing authorization for the library. Article 25, rescind the unused borrowing authorization for the water treatment plant. So we'll take those two, please.
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 24 and 25, please.
Second.
All right. So it has been moved that we recommend passage of Article 24 and 25. We can take a vote of all of those that are in favor. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charber.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Articles 24 and 25 have been recommended for passage. So Article 26 is the exemption for the blind. I'd like to take that separately.
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Article 26.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to take a vote. All of those in favor of passage of Article 26. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charber.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. No. So Article 26 has been recommended for passage by a vote of 7-1. Article 27 is to amend the personnel bylaws. So can we take that one, please?
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Article 27.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. It's been moved and seconded. So all in favor of passage of amending the personnel bylaws, Article 27, Mark Adler,
Aye.
Vikram Charbor,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell,
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, no. Okay, so the next article, so Article 27 has been recommended for passage by a vote of 7-1. Article 28 is the town meeting procedure and threat. Article 29 is to add the community preservation section to the bylaws. Article 30 is to add the housing trust section to the bylaws. Is there any objection to taking those three? Okay, can I get a motion?
Judy,
Yes, Mr. Adler.
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 28, 29, and 30, please.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded passage for Articles 28, 29, and 30. So we're going to take a roll call. Mark Adler,
Aye.
Vikram Charbor,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell,
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. So Articles 28, 29, and 30 are recommended are recommended for passage. So by a vote of 8-0. So then we've got Articles 31, 32, and 33 are zoning changes. Let's take those three as a group, unless there's an objection. Any objection to that? Okay. Can I get, please, Mr. Adler?
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 31, 32, and 33, please.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved in second for recommending Articles 31, 32, and 33 for passage. Take a vote. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charbor.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. Articles 31, 32, and 33 have been recommended for passage. And then we're going to now, Article 37 is the home rule petition. Article 38 is sell call to acquire a parcel of land. Article 39 is Route 20 expansion. Article 40 is Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services funding. Article 41 is transfer to Lake Consignment Commission Fund, and Article 42 is trustees of the Wright and Harlow Charitable Fund. Any objection to taking this last group?
Judy, could I just make a request that we do the home rule petition separately, please? So it,
Absolutely. So that will be Article 37.
Judy,
Yes.
I move that we recommend passage of Article 37.
second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we recommend passage of Article 37. All in favor, Mark Adler?
Aye.
Vikram Charbor?
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell?
Aye.
Aaron Howard?
Aye.
Hannah Kane?
Aye.
Carlos Garcia?
Aye.
Mark Murray?
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. All right, so now then Articles 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. I'm not going to repeat the detail. Any objection to taking this last group in a vote?
No.
Seeing none, can I get a motion, please?
Judy.
Yes, Mr. Adler.
I move that we recommend passage of Articles 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and anything else anyone wants to bring to us tonight.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded for passage of Articles 38 through 42. Be recommended for passage. Take a vote. Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Charbor.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Hannah Kane.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Carlos. Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. So Articles 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42 have been recommended for passage. So that concludes our deliberations of the warrant articles. This takes us now to item number 5, which is review and approve the fiscal year 22 Finance Committee report. At our last meeting, we took comment on the draft document. Mr. Mizikar then did a red line of the report. Mr. Adler and I then reviewed that and made some follow-up changes, and so you have that document in your drive. Are there any questions or comments on the document as it is at this point? Hannah?
Yes, I would just say in the second paragraph, it says a fiscal study committee was established in 2013. There was also one established in 2007, I believe. I think it's just worth where we're recapping that
Okay.
we note both.
So, okay, good. So we can amend that by adding 2007 and, or, so whatever that, we'll double check the date and 2013, okay? Anything else? Okay, so if I can get a motion to accept the report with that amendment.
So moved, Judy.
Great. Can I get a second, actually?
Second.
It's been moved in second to accept the report as we've agreed to amend. Go down through all in favor. Mark Adler,
Aye.
Rick Trauber,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Hannah Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. All right, so
Can I just have a point of order on that? If Mr. O'Connell abstains, does his name not go on the letter? Is that what abstaining does? I just want to make sure we have clarity for him to answer my own question.
it's a fair question.
Better, if I may, as the movement of that of the motion tonight, I would say perhaps we don't even need to sign our names, but rather this is a report of the Finance Committee. It can get put into the booklet without names. It's just, this is the report of the Finance Committee. A lot of other reports go in without lots of people's names, and I don't see any reason for that to go in with. After all, Jordan's not here either tonight, and I don't want to represent him one way or the other. So it's an old tradition, but there's no reason we have to keep it up.
I agree. This is, we're breaking tradition somewhat, and maybe we'll continue to do so going forward, but it could just be the report of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is known, so.
And I'm happy not calling out people one way or the other.
I think though, if we've taken a vote on something, then it at least should say adopted by the Finance Committee, 7-1 or something. I just think that there should be some.
Although, do you say 7? He abstained. He didn't vote against it.
I didn't vote against it.
Right.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, point of clarification.
Please.
Maybe I misread the update, but I believe we still talked about the liability of the $33 million.
That's correct. That's there, so it's a fact.
Yeah, I just want to say I've never been told yes or no if that is actually something that's real. I believe talking to the school committee during Dr. Sawyer's presentation, he talked about being.
Excuse me, Mr. O'Connell, Mr. Mizikar updated that section, so it's not exactly worded the way it was when we discussed it earlier. Mr. Mizikar has reviewed it and updated that verbiage, so I don't know if that makes a difference in your vote.
I don't think I saw the latest verbiage then.
It was in your drive, so.
Yeah, maybe I just misread it. So
if I can try to clarify, so I have a letter from the MSBA that says the town would be obligated to repay the $33 million if the building is not used as a school. So that's what the text of the letter says.
It's not used as a school. So we have the obligation to use it as a school. We don't have an obligation to use it as a filled school.
And that's what the verbiage of the letter says if you had read it, so.
Yeah, I apologize. I pulled the wrong one off then, so I didn't see that one. If that's the case, then I do approve the letter.
All right, so how does this work procedurally? Do we revote or do we just accept a new vote?
Any vote can be reconsidered, and I'm fine doing that. Let's get some clarity. Let's get.
Okay, let's do I need a motion to reconsider the vote?
I'm afraid so.
May I have a motion to reconsider the vote?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a vote to reconsider the vote. So all in favor of reconsidering the vote, Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Trevor,
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell,
Aye.
Aaron Howard,
Aye.
Anna Kane,
Aye.
Carlos Garcia,
Aye.
Mark Murray,
Aye.
Judy Vetter, aye. So we are now going to reconsider the vote. So no, we've already done that. So now we're going to take another vote. Do I need another motion?
I'm afraid
I
so.
think I do. May I have another motion to accept the Finance Committee?
Before we do, there was this question earlier about how do we signatures for it. And again, Mr. Rubin is not here tonight. I don't know in the past if we've just added that person and assumed they voted for it. The Finance Committee statement has never been all that controversial or all that frankly interesting, but yeah, I don't want to start adding names when Jordan wasn't involved in this one way or the other. So what do you all think we ought to do?
If I may,
Please.
I mean, I do understand Mark's point, but if we do take a vote, even if it is not 100%, it still represents the Finance Committee decision. So I personally feel that all names should be there.
I would concur with that because that's traditionally what's always been done, right or wrong, but it's always been done. I don't think that necessarily everybody was at the meeting, and then the names of the Finance Committee were listed. So.
Okay.
All right.
No other objections. I move that we accept and have published the Finance Committee report as presented and amended tonight.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor? Mark Adler.
Aye.
Vikram Trevor.
Aye.
Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Anna Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. All right, the Finance Committee report is approved and will appear in the book with all of the Finance Committee members' names. Okay, so the next is the revised meeting schedule. Please, the April, do we need to do the April 29th meeting, Mr. Mizikar?
I don't see any reason to have that meeting.
Okay, so we will not do the April 29th meeting. And then there was an update, I believe, then that B is actually May 20th is the next Finance Committee meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, which would coincide with pre-town meeting.
Oh, that's pre-town meeting? Okay. Okay, and then obviously on May 22nd is the annual town meeting, and that begins at 8:30 a.m. All right, anything further on that? Okay, that takes us to item number 7, other business. Any other business? Great, we'll move on to correspondence then. Email to the Finance Committee from Hannah Kane regarding local aid announcement. Email to the Finance Committee from James Vona, Fire Chief, regarding Shrewsbury Fire Department 2020 year-end reports and statistics. Email to the Finance Committee from Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager, regarding Sherwood bonds refunding results, which were very exciting news. So thank you for sharing that with us. And then email to the Finance Committee from Hannah Kane, State Representative, regarding fiscal year 22 House budget. So at this point, I would welcome a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Judy, I'm going to get the hell out of here.
Can we get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, so I think the motion should be to adjourn the meeting as opposed to. So all of those in favor of adjourning the meeting, Mr. Adler.
Oh, yeah.
Vikram Chabra. Dennis O'Connell.
Aye.
Aaron Howard.
Aye.
Anna Kane.
Aye.
Carlos Garcia.
Aye.
Mark Murray.
Aye.
Judy Vetter. Aye. Thank you very much for your time, your attention, and have a good evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Aye.
Bye now.